eForms. RouteOne is not only for creating reports in spreadsheets. One of the more popular methods of using RouteOne is for electronic form generation. And I'd like to now introduce Denise Osborne, who will guide us through using RouteOne for all your electronic document needs. Hello, Denise.
Hi, Andy. Good afternoon, everybody.
Can you tell me how customers use RouteOne for electrical form requirements?
Yeah, Andy, we've got many customers using RouteOne now just to adopt the process of creating electronic forms. Now, these could be invoices like the one I'm going to show you today, or it could be statements or purchase orders, anything really that goes out of the I-series that needs to be sent to a customer or supplier or even your warehouse. So for the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to show you how to extract the data from this IBM System I and then very simply merge it with an electronic form. As I say, in this example, it's a sales invoice. RouteOne will analyse and split the spool file and then populate the eForm automatically. On completion, RouteOne will then email the data, again in a format of your choice, to the end customer. As Andy said before, everybody, it's your business, your rules. You simply need to tell the system how each recipient wants the data and in what format, and then RouteOne can automate the distribution process for you.
Sounds compelling, Denise. Please take us through how you do this.
Okay, as with earlier, Steve showed you before, we're going to go into RouteOne on the AS400. And what I've set up here is, in the definitions, what's called a mail merge request. Now you will see on the screen here something you're familiar with, which is your kind of forms probably that are presented to you as it appears on the I-series. And if you just were to print that out, it would be very basic without any corporate formatting. The colours are actually to identify which line types are in there. And if I take F7, what you'll see is each line type has got a colour against it, so visually I can see which information I'm extracting to go to the template. And then the detail line has a 1 against it. Now this is really important because if you've historically been printing on pre-printed stationery, for example, that's in a landscape format, and you can only get 15, for example, detail lines on there, RouteOne will actually allow you to extend this. So if you're going to be emailing documents out, there'll be smaller documents, and if you can still continue to print them, you could perhaps get a 5-page document into a 3-page document, which will save you obviously on postage and packing and paper supplies. And how that 1 ties in, if we go into the next panel, those are all the fields that are going to be output into our Word template. And taking F15, page merge details, this is where I specify the number of detail lines I want in my form. So I'm going to save that definition. Actually, sorry about this, if I just skip back a couple of screens and take what we call F23, which is external fields. These external fields can be used to either name a document or pick up an email address from a file that we've linked to. So RouteOne will automate this whole process by linking back to files for information that may not even be on the form created from the I-series. So as Steve did before, I'm going to save that and generate a program, and I will show you a template which I've created that the data is going to go into. And this is just a very crude example, I should imagine, of an invoice template that I've set up here with all those fields that come from the file. So as Steve did before, we'll go into option 4, which is your FTP requests, a 2 to change, and we say we're going to go down to this local PC with an Excel spreadsheet. But here's the important bit. In F11, I'm saying this is my template and where it's held. I want to create an output document, creating a folder called invoices, with an invoice with the name of the company and the invoice number against it. Now if you're printing, that's fine, you can print from a Word document, but if you're emailing, it's important to create a PDF document. That means that the file size is smaller, won't be bounced back by some inboxes, and also it's hard to change PDF documents. If you were to print again, you just put a printer name in here and RouteOne would know exactly which printer it's going to. And F17, because we want to email this particular invoice and link to a file and pick up an email address, here we've used the external field you saw earlier. And as I say, that will link back to the file and pick up the email address for this particular customer. In this case here, I'm just going to run this request manually. And if I scroll over to RouteOne Client and I'm quick enough, we actually see the Excel file arriving, merging with the document, creating a mail merged document with the company name and the invoice number, and then it's going to be emailed out. If I switch over to our email application and go into the outbox, because it's actually, oh, it's already started sending. Sorry about this, chaps. Not right. Okay, you still with us? No, you can't answer me back, but we're, there we go. There's the invoice we just created. It's linked back to the file, it's picked up the email address, and it's created as a PDF document. Now, I've just done that all manually, but what you can do is you can monitor output queues for the arrival of a spool file, and then RouteOne will automatically kick into action. Now, I know what you're thinking is that your invoices are created in one long invoice run. For example, then that will just email everybody the same invoice. But what RouteOne can do, it can pick up that invoice run as it appears on the output queue, split it, it can decide whether it's going to an output queue that's going to print, or an output queue that's going to email, or an output queue that's going to fax. And then RouteOne does all the work in the background for you by using what we call automatic spool file processing, monitoring output queues for the arrival of your spool file. So Andy, that's in a nutshell really, RouteOne creating electronic forms. We've got, like I say, many customers using RouteOne on electronic forms, producing thousands of documents daily.
That's terrific. Thank you very much, Denise. And within this section we saw how easy it is to develop your own custom forms using products we use day in, day out. There's no need for a custom designer. Identification of the data and splitting of spool files was completed in seconds by rules you define. And indeed, if you were to retain your printers, you could direct these different invoices, different reports to different printers around the building. Again, it's your business, it's your rules. Distribution of the transformed data was handled by the Rules Engine 2, which enables you to control what data gets sent to who, when, and in what format. Your purchase orders delivered electronically, via XML to suppliers, and invoices to customers via eForms in PDF. It's your data, it's your choice. In the example we just saw, we merged data from the IBM iSpool file with a pre-formatted Microsoft Word form to create a sales invoice. But equally, this could be statements, picking notes, delivery advice, purchase orders. Well, in fact, anything you create a document for. I'm going to give you a brief real-life scenario and how RouteOne has helped support customers. And we've got a long tradition of saving customers money and time, while simultaneously, and more prevalent these days, increasing their green credentials. And in this example, a major food service company with headquarters in Leeds spent over a week and many hundreds of pounds each month to distribute reports. Twice a month they print the spool report, guillotine the paper, and split the reports for each location. Package the reports into envelopes, frank each consignment, then post to over 20,000 locations. As you can imagine, this process was time and labour intensive. The reports were basic text and unprofessional, but more importantly, it was expensive and slow. By the time the report had been received, the data was out of date. Through the implementation of RouteOne, the expense, labour and time element were removed instantly. We picked up the reports from a spool file, automatically split the data, transformed it into formatted forms, which were distributed electronically to each and every location in PDF. a 5-day expensive and time-consuming manual task was transformed into an automated same-day process. Return on investment